Hello MMA fans, back and excited for a new 8-part video set series called 2013 Prospects. Over the course of the next week I'll be putting out, actually probably over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'll be putting out a total of 8 videos featuring on prospects in each weight class ranging from flyweight to heavyweight. And it will be the top prospects and some lesser known prospects in each division. Of course there'll be guys left off the list. I wanted at least 10 prospects in each division, and after going through each class, I realized there's more guys I want to talk about. So with each video, you'll probably see 15 to 20 prospects per division. Like I said, over the next week or so, I'll probably be introducing to you approximately 150 new fighters. Again, trying to go for some of the lesser known guys. If I just want to talk about guys that were for sure going to make it into the UFC and Bellator, I could talk about guys like, Alex Garcia, Bubba Jenkins, Thiago Lima, those kind of guys. But, people have mentioned those guys before. They're on different websites. They've had some press. So I'm going to leave those guys, out of the mix, those type of guys. For those of you that are not familiar with my prospect videos, the boundaries: no UFC and no Ultimate Fighter experience, no Bellator experience, no Strikeforce experience, no Dream, although Dream is, slightly falling off the scene here, but no Pride experience. Very excited about, some of the different divisions. Light heavyweight, I'm looking forward to putting that video out. Heavyweight, middleweight is stacked. There's tons of guys at middleweight. I'm going to try to add, I've looked at thousands of fighters over the last few weeks here. I mean, a lot of these guys I've known about already, but I've really crunched it here the last 4 or 5 days. I've watched, thousands of videos and fighters and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of great prospects spread out from the whole world. I mean, not to mention guys displaying great striking, but, great wrestlers, great submission specialists. These videos will really show how big the sport is becoming. A lot of fighters have dedicated, their life to fighting and training. So, people see a future in it. It's a risk, but, guys are going for it. One thing I'm going to try to add to my videos to kind of, up the entertainment value, I guess you could say, to give you more perspective on these guys, I'm going to add video links in the information section below. I'll try to tag each fighter with at least one video, whether it be some highlights of him or one of his fights. I recommend you checking it out. So without further ado, this video we're going to start with the featherweights. And again, I was originally going to go with 10 guys, but I ended up with 20. And there's many more I could talk about, but these 20 in particular I wanted to. So starting off with featherweights, number 1, Martin Striegl. Striegl is 24 years old, 5'8", 145 pounds. He also fought at 155, but better suited for 145. 12-0 as a professional with 10 submissions. 10-1 as an amateur. So there's a guy that's 22-1 if you count both sides. Filipino, Baguio City, Fight Corps MMA, Team Buffett his association. Now, it kind of mixed up on his background. He grew up in Japan and at some point made a move to the States. Training wrestling and taekwondo. He trained MMA in high school and while at university in San Diego. He also wrestled in high school, with the likes of Dean Lister, Dominic Cruz, Tony Amata, some great training partners at one point there. He's fought in the URCC, the PXC, the Malaysian Fighting Championships, LFC, so he's kind of a journeyman when it comes to promotions. Strengths, of course, are his grappling and his wrestling. He only started training in 2009, so surprisingly he's come quite a long ways for that short amount of time. His fight against E.V. Ting, it's a fight where he got Ting's back and never relinquished it. He's got decent takedowns, appears to be very comfortable on his feet, although that's the part of his game that, of course, needs, the most improvement. Is the striking. He does show some, some solid knees from the clinch. Likes pressure, he can work off his back, but no problem at all. Look at some of his key wins. He defeated Harris Sorrento. That's a 60 fight veteran fighter. Big win over Evie Ting, who's 5-1. Striegl's the only guy to defeat him. Big win over Yuzuki Kawanaga, a 13-3 pancreas and LFC vet, very well respected fighter in Japan. He's defeated American Giovanni Sablan. Cristiano Perpetuo's 4-1. The only loss coming to Striegl, and he's beat it. Pei Yang Kwan is a fighter that just went the distance with Eric Kelly. Eric Kelly, of course, if you watch 1FC, he's a guy that recently defeated Jens Pulver. Recently defeated Jens Pulver via TKO, I believe. A guy to check out, Martin Striegl. I will put some video highlights of him. Check him out. Not the flashiest guy, but definitely, very technical and legit on the ground. So Martin Striegl is the first guy, and check him out. The next fighter I'm going to talk about, we're going to swing over to Germany for this guy, and his name is Martin Buschkamp. 21 years old, 5'9", 145 pounds. Tuttlin, Germany, Association Plant Eater, 6-0, 6 submissions, all first round victories. 1-0 as an amateur with a first round submission. Trains under the BJJ specialist Peter Sabata. Bronze medal last year's European BJJ Championships. Key wins over Muay Thai specialist Suvan Hajay Hudon, who's also a rising prospect, and decorated wrestling stud Marcel Jadidi of Germany. He won the one-night 10th anniversary 4-man one-night tournament. Very aggressive grappling and ground and pound. I haven't seen a stand-up, but I would say, that's the part of his game, and he's improving because of his background. He takes his opponents down so quick and submits them that I haven't seen it. But, at just 21 years of age, definitely a prospect to watch out for, Martin Buschkamp. I will put some video up of him. Number 3 on the list, heading back to Hawaii, the States, Dustin Kimura. He's either 21 or 22, 145 pounds, fighting out of Honolulu, Hawaii, USA. Gracie techniques with the likes of UFC veteran Max Holloway, 9-0, 6 submissions, 2 knockouts as a professional, 4-0 as an amateur, I believe, 2 submissions. Recently signed a multi-fight deal with PXC, which is a tough division with the likes of Striegl and Joe Chimalengo. The ground game, of course, is key, improving stand-up under Jesus Salad, a former super bantamweight WBA boxing championship, 76-fight veteran. Most fights were in X1. Does have decent takedown defense and can work off his back. Key victories now, a big KO win over Guy Delamo. Now, Delamo is a guy who's only been knocked out twice in his career, about 30 pro fights. Delamo's got a big win over Tusei Tomori, who's a UFC veteran, and also he's defeated 10-1 Yuta Sasaki prospect. So, a win over Guy Delamo. Delamo is a real guy, so to beat him makes you a real guy, and he becomes a definite, to be desired prospect. Do have, a couple of videos of him. I got a fight in here with him and Colin McKenzie, and of course the Guy Delamo knockout. So a guy to check out. Not the flashiest guy, but definitely a guy that's interesting. Number 4 on the list, Brazilian fighter Glicerio Santos. Now, 5'9", 145 pounds, 24 years old. Campina Gran Paraíba, Brazil. Brazilian top team fighter under the legs of Murilo Bustamante and Rosemary Palhares. 22-3, 8 knockouts, 9 submissions. Fights both orthodox and southpaw. Very agile fighter, very athletic, naturally talented fighter. Top-notch striking, kicking, big power, submission game. Well versed with jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Good takedown defense. He did have a couple of defeats early in his career. Recently, Carl Prater, but early on Patricio Fair. But he's a young guy. His last 2 wins were from brutal knockouts over both fighters who have never been KO'd before. He's defeated Team Nogueira fighter Igor Fernandez, who's 16-6, I believe, and he's also defeated 20-8 fighter Diego Braga Alves. Now, Alves is a guy who's defeated UFC veteran Milton Vieira. So, Glicerio Santos is a real guy. Check these guys' highlights out. He's got some great knockout videos here on YouTube. I will put the links in the section below. if you're going to watch any videos, check this guy out. Very entertaining, agile, and dangerous fighter. The next guy I'm going to talk about is Rick Glenn, an American fighter. He's a guy that I first seen, caught my eye. I've seen him on the Score Fighting Series here in Canada. 6 feet, 146 pounds, 23 years of age, 12-2-1 as a professional with 6 knockouts, 5 submissions, and I believe he was 15-1 as an amateur. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA, Rufus Sport with the likes of Anthony Pettis, Eric Koch, Ben Askren, Sergio Pettis. Pro since age 17. He was in school to be a physical therapist, assistant. Don't know if he's still continuing that, but started boxing at age 14. He did have a few amateur bouts. He did train at Days Moen's MMA for a while with Jeremy Stevens and Josh Nair. Well-rounded striking, power kicking, good ground game. Very good with his legs, triangles, that kind of stuff. Vicious ground and pound, good elbows. Works off his back. There's a very tremendous highlight reel here. Another guy I recommend checking out this highlight video. You'll enjoy it. Kind of shows his well-roundedness and his all-around game. He defeated Tristan Johnson, Nova Scotian Tristan Johnson, the guy who beat Will Romero twice, and he's also defeated Lyndon Whitlock, who's a 7-3 fighter from Canada. So he's beat some decent guys. A guy that I think is pretty close to being UFC ready, Rick Glenn. Check him out. Check his highlights out. You will be entertained. The next guy I'm going to talk about, this is kind of a guy I stumbled across, though. And definitely an interesting fighter by the name of, let's get his stats up here. Raoni Barcelos, 5'6", 145 pounds, 27 years old, 4 wins, no losses, 2 knockouts, 1 submission. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Ruas, Vale Tudo under Pedro Rizzo, Marco Ruas. Top level black belt jiu-jitsu under Arut Barcelos, his father. Get this guy's been training BJJ since the age of 2, so it's safe to say he knows what he's doing on the ground. Tons of titles, including four world titles and lower belts. Dedicated freestyle wrestler, he fought for the Brazilian national team many times, such in 2006 when he won the Pan Am Games silver medal, and in 2007 he won the Brazilian national championship. His jiu-jitsu background, Brazilian no-gi in 2009, champ 3-time world champion in 2002, 2003, and 2006 under blue and purple belt. 2005 World Cup champ, 3-time Brazilian national champ in 04 and 05 in the blue belt, and 06 in the purple belt. Portuguese national champion 2010, 2-time Brazilian national silver medalist in 02 and 03. In 2008, under the Beijing Olympic website, he's listed on the Brazilian wrestling team. So I know Brazil sent a relegation type team to the Olympics, but I don't have a lot of information on that part, so I can't add anything else. If you watch this guy's fights, and I recommend you do, I'll put the links up. He's not a boring fighter. He's not all about the ground game. Very passionate about fighting. Very, very aggressive with striking. He's got a big win over Jorge Rodriguez Silva, a guy who's got 35 fights, 27 victories, 17 by submission. He's got a big knockout victory, which you will see in that highlight video. It looks to be a very aggressive striker. Interesting to see what this guy does. I'd like to see him stick to the sport, and I think, potential prospect there. So a guy to watch out for. Raoni Barcelos. The next guy I'm going to talk about, to get back to my right page here, number 7 is another Canadian fighter, the first Canadian fighter to make the list, the first of many over the course of the next 8 videos. Graham Spencer, 26 years of age, 5'7", 145 pounds, 9-1-1, 1-0 contest, 4 submission victories. Started training BJJ after high school. Nanaimo, BC, Canada. Impact MMA. Recently switched to Alpha Male. The likes of Uriah Faber, Joseph Benavides, Chad Mendes, etc., etc. Of course, his ground game was his strong point. Decent takedowns, good top game, ever improving striking. Of course, it does need some work. He's got a big upset win. In many eyes it was an upset. In his eyes, it wasn't a big win over Shane Nelson, UFC veteran. Also a big win over rising star Boekee Marone. Now, there's a rumor rematch between him and Marone at lightweight. Now, anybody who's familiar with the MFC, and Mark Pavlich, of course, is the owner. You know, they put on some great fights. I've attended a lot of shows. I've seen, you know, Paul Daly knocked out John Alessio. I've seen Ryan Gimo fight Marvin Eastman. I've seen some big fights there. They put on some good shows, but sometimes Mark Pavlich, I don't agree with his moves. He tries to make sure the fights are more aggressive and striking, but like 2010, he tried to change the rules. He tried to, you know, he said anybody who pulls guard in the MSC will be fired. Like, I mean, it's a sport. You know, one of the reasons I love the sport is the purity of it, right? And he's a promoter. He wants to sell a big fight, so he thinks a rematch with Marone is, you know, a good selling point. Maybe it is, but Spencer now has to go back up to lightweight. And, you know, his division should be 145. That's where he's fought recently. So, although he's beat Marone before, Marone is a bigger, stronger, quicker, faster opponent, and very dangerous for Spencer. I think Spencer should stay at 145, but that's above. Of course, he's going to do it. I think he's going to go ahead with the fight. Spencer's a guy, he's got 2 fights left on a 3-fight deal with the MFC. If he wins those fights, I believe you will see him fight probably in the UFC. So, a guy to watch out for. He's also defeated 7-1 Canadian lightweight Mike Adams. I do have some video highlights of him. Check him out. Graham Spencer. Number 8 on the list. And, you know, wrestling fans in the States will be very familiar with this guy. Darrion Caldwell, 5'10", 145 pounds, 24 years of age. 1-0 as a professional. Rayhaven, New Jersey, USA. Power MMA team with the likes of Seth Pajinski, Jesse Forbes, Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, Stephen Ray Steinmetz, and Aaron Simpson. So, you know, very, you know, decorated training class, you know, to help out with his fight career. I think he signed a 4-fight deal with the Legacy FC. You know, he won his first fight against a 2-4 fighter. I mean, he looked very dominant, but regardless, you know, maybe it wasn't the toughest opponent, but it was the guy's first fight. So, he's got an upcoming fight on December 14th. Against 5-3 fighter Quayne Kemp. So, you know, another test for him. You know, Kemp is not a superstar by any means, but it's, you know, it's a little bit of a step up, and we'll see where he goes. 2009 former Division I NCAA champ, 2-time All-American in North Carolina, 109-13 college wrestling record. Rubber match with Lee Metcalf. No, in 2009, Lee Metcalf was invincible, indestructible, the best wrestler in NCAA at 149 pounds. And going into that final, you know, Caldwell blew everybody away with his dominant victory, and he was doing things that you wouldn't try in an amateur, and he was getting away with it. So, I mean, that really put him on the map. 3-time high school state champ, high school All-American. He won the Team USA representative at the Dapper Games. You know, it's kind of the Rose Bowl of wrestling. You know, and he fought in New Jersey. And, you know, New Jersey is one of the toughest states to excel in wrestling at. There's, you know, seems to be the hotbed, one of the hotbeds. And, you know, he did have a run at the USA World Freestyle. He suffered a significant injury in college, so that really changed his career. He was never the same as a wrestler, and, you know, he pretty much just fell off the map for a while there. But, you know, this guy is naturally gifted. He's a naturally talented athlete. And if you look at, you know, some guys that fight nowadays, like the John Jones, even a guy like Melvin Gillard, these guys are naturally talented fighters. And, I mean, this guy is one of them. So, I'm not sure where he's going to go with his career, but based on his background, if he's hungry with his naturally athletic ability and his training camp, this guy is a definite prospect. Who knows if he'll end up going anywhere, but I would definitely want to include him on the list. Darrion Caldwell, a guy to check out for sure. Interesting prospect. Next guy I'm going to talk about is a guy I haven't had a lot of information on. Julio Cesar Neves. 6'1", 145 pounds, 11-0, 6 knockouts, 3 submissions. Balneário Camboriú, Santa Catarina, Brazil. Ranacoto fight team. You know, training alongside of Miguel Jose Falco Concalves, Jose Tomé, Luis Nogueira, and Ginar de Silva. So a pretty tough cast of training partners. You know, all his opponents were relatively, you know, very weak with their records, big time, but he won 2 nights ago over a 4-1 fighter, Wilhelm Serrero at 4-1. So that, was a selling point for me to put him on the list. I do have a lack of information on this guy, but anybody out there, anybody watching this, if you do have some information, send it my way. Anytime you come across a fighter that's 11-0, you're going to give him a look. And the one thing that caught my eye with this guy is, of course, his height, but the difference between some guys have TKO victories and some guys have KO victories, and this guy has 4 KO victories via flying knee, 4 flying knee KO victories. So obviously the guy's, no matter who he's fighting, he's agile. He's got a bit of a killer instinct, and it makes him interesting. So he does have 3 submission victories. His first 10 opponents, the combined record was only 7-21. So of course, lack of competition. But somebody put a video up, I think 2 days ago, one of his fights. Doesn't show us a whole lot. It's only a short fight. He wins via submission. Doesn't really look outstanding in it, but it's a short fight. Because of his size, his power, the way he's won fights, he makes my list. And also, it's a guy that, again, if any viewers have any information, please send it my way. Number 10 on the list, we're going to go back to the USA to talk about this guy. And his name is Nick Lobosco, 5'10", 145 pounds, 28 years of age, 6'0" as professional, 4-0 as an amateur, 2 knockouts, 2 submissions. St. Peters, Missouri, USA. St. Charles MMA is his association. California MMA Fighting Systems Caveman Challenge in 2009. He won that. That's a challenge including endurance exercises such as press-ups and fire flips, etc. Standout wrestler at CBC at Christian Brothers College. Head coach at Parkway South ATT Evolution, which is home to Tyrone Woolley, and I believe Woolley corners this guy. He competed for also the Missouri Baptist University. Tight wrestling, big ground and pound. In the video I'm going to show you in the links, his opponent is to be desired for, and you can tell his opponent is, a guy that's not going to be fighting MMA. But, with Labosco's bit of college background wrestling, the camp he's in, and, he looks like a guy who's got, some talent there. So, I decided to include him in the list. It's a guy that he could possibly move up and fight in a bigger organization. So, Nick Lobosco, if you get a chance to check him out, do so. Should be interesting. The next guy, again, another relatively unknown by the name of Sean Soriano, 5'9", 142 pounds, 23 years old, 6-0, 3 knockouts, 3 submissions. Miami, Florida, USA. Black Zillions, Jacko Hybrid Training Center. Part of ATT with the likes of Thiago Alves, Gleison Tebow, Thiago Silva. Looks to have a good mix of stand-up, wrestling, and submissions. Very, very athletic and very comfortable on his feet. Lack of information on this guy. Does have some weak opponents. I think his biggest victory was over Matthew Perry, a 4-2 fighter. But a guy I wanted to mention because, he did fight at 155. He moved down to 145. Again, with the training partners. And, how comfortable he looked in his fights regardless of competition. I decided to include him, Sean Soriano. Number 12 on the list, and this is a guy that I'm thinking a lot of you people, fans, would have heard of by now. Calvin Kattar, 5'11", 145 pounds, 24 years of age, 13 wins, 2 losses. Fights out of Medina, Massachusetts, USA. 6 knockouts, 3 submissions. Way Crew MMA's association with the likes of John Howard, Ricardo Almeida, and Lee Bean. Pro debut at age 19. He started at he started at lightweight walks around at about 175. Trained out of Way Crew Gym in Alston and Intense MMA in Lawrence. He also worked with legendary boxer Mickey Ward, developing crisper hands. Again, I think he's a bigger threat at 145 because of his height. He's got a big following in Massachusetts, guys. They love him there. He beat some quality opponents. He beat highly touted prospect Sal Almeida, a Team Nogueira fighter. I think he's a Bellator veteran. Cody Stevens, he's 8-5 as a fighter, but he was 9-1 as an amateur. And Cody Stevens is a guy who went the distance with Wilson Reyes, with Almeida, and with highly touted prospect Jeff Smith, who I decided to leave off the list. He also defeated Luis Rodriguez. That's the only loss of Rodriguez's career. I do have some video highlights of Kattar. I'm not too sure on him. He's very aggressive, you know, but definitely a guy that's hungry and a guy that I think will get some sort of shot, probably in Bellator, you know, in the near future, I'm thinking. So, gotta watch out for Calvin Kattar. Number 13 on the list, and a lot of you guys will definitely know who this fighter is. You'll definitely know who his brother is. Raphael Assuncao, 5'7", 145 pounds, 28 years of age, 7-1 as a professional, 2 knockouts, 1 submission. Rosebud, Georgia, USA. A sensing mix martial arts with brother Raphael and Jr. and Diego Lima as such. Background training in jiu-jitsu at an early age, as well as capoeira. I think age 12 they started. You know, at some point in his early years, he got separated from his brothers. He started training Muay Thai, and he had some, you know, amateur and professional Muay Thai fights. You know, and then reunited with his brothers back into the jiu-jitsu. I think he's a purple belt now. You know, his first professional fight 3 years ago was when he defeated UFC fighter Felipe Arantes. Arantes is the guy who defeated Antonio Carvalho, John Linklater. He's also defeated, you know, UFC and WC veteran Kit Cope. Of course, Cope best known for his TV personality. You know, not the most tremendous fighter, but he is a name fighter. You know, I got a pretty good highlight video to put in the link section here. It shows him against a wrestler, and he's really is a, you know, interesting, tremendous young fighter. He's got a good stand up. He's got good submissions, good submission defense, and he's got good takedowns. And he actually looks like he has some good wrestling. So a guy to watch out for. A guy I'm interested to see him move up. Definitely, at least to see him fight in, say, a Bellator. Freddie Assuncao. Number 14 on the list. I kind of went back and forth on this fighter, but, you know, I decided to go with him because the guy, I seen him fight a tremendous brawl on YouTube, and, you know, the guy finds ways to win fights. Andre Fili, 22, 5'10", 145. He was 155. 11-1, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions. Only last coming being knee injury. Sacramento, California. Team Alpha Male. Uriah Faber, Joseph Benadia, Chad Mendez, Justin Buckles, Casey Uscola, TJ Dilshaw, Lance Palmer, etc., etc. Rangy striker, bit of a brawler, deceptively decent ground game, you know, fairly agile, kind of awkward with the striking, but he's got power in both hands as well as his kicking. Again, a key victory over 25-fight veteran Enoch Wilson. Wilson's the guy who fought Chase Beep to a draw. He's also defeated, Enoch Wilson has also been in the ring with Uriah Faber, Steven Siler, sorry, and Gunderson, as well as a victory over Ian Loveland. So, you know, by beating Enoch Wilson makes you look, you know, it's a real guy he beat. And the fight I was talking about was with Ricky Wallace. Definitely check this one out. Mark Lehman's young prospect Ricky Wallace. It was a real war, and, you know, Philly came out on top. I put it in the video section. That's the biggest reason I put him on the list. As well as, you know, he started wrestling at age 11 and jiu-jitsu at age 15. The guy finds ways to win fights. I have a video to put up here. He tried out for the Ultimate Fighter and was overlooked, but it's a pretty cool video. Check it out. Entertaining to say the least. Andre Fili. Next guy I'm going to talk about, moving over to across the pond to Scotland, is Robert Whiteford. 5'10", 145 pounds, 29 years of age, 9-1, 2-0 as an amateur, 5 knockouts, 1 submission. Lobosco, Scotland. Pocket Ninja, ATT is the association he trains out of. As mentioned earlier, tried out for Tough as well, but I believe he was overlooked. You know, he likes to bang, powerful striker, very aggressive. He's got a big win over highly touted prospect, Swedish prospect Martin Svensson. He's also defeated Liam James, and James is the only guy to defeat French prospect Jean Doyle. You know, he does have some decent big takedowns, which you'll see in the video I put up here, and you know, definitely an interesting guy to watch out for with TKO power, Robert Whiteford. The next guy I'm going to talk about, and the reason I brought this guy up, because Whiteford was supposed to fight this guy, but the fight got cancelled last night. Chris Fishgold, 5'7", 147, fights out of England, 20 years of age, 7-0, 6 submissions, 2-0 as an amateur, fights at the Next Generation UK with likes of prospects Danny Roberts, James McGuinness. His background, purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu under Chris Brennan, and also under black belt Paul Reamer. He won the 87-kilogram local tournament, and he only weighed 75 kilograms. It's called a ground control tournament. He won that. He just recently signed a contract with Cage Warriors. Very technical in his ground game, as shown in his victory against 9-4 fighter Jeremy Petley. A guy to watch out for at that young of age with his 7-0 record. Chris Fishgold is definitely a guy that it's too bad I didn't get to see him in Whiteford fight, because it would have been tremendous. But a guy to watch out for, Chris Fishgold. The next guy I'm going to talk about, and originally I wasn't going to include this guy till I did some more research on him, but fighting out of Sweden, Niklas Backstrom, 145 pounds, 23 years of age, 5-0, 2 knockouts, 1 submission. Fighting out of Hilti NHB with the likes of Per Eklund, Diego Gonzalez, and Raza Madadi. Big fight with fellow Swedish prospect Martin Svensson was cancelled last night. He trained Muay Thai under Nordic fighters in Lue. He's got a big TKO win over Thomas Huyton. Now, Huyton's a 9-9 fighter as a professional. He was 15-4 as an amateur, but Huyton has a big KO win over UFC veteran Per Eklund, and he also defeated WEC veteran Benny Casimir. So, by beating him, it's a tremendous victory for a young fighter. And he's also defeated 13-5 Sergey Kugachko, Lithuanian fighter, I believe. And that guy went the distance with Jason Young. He does have a couple of decent wins. Lack of video on him here on YouTube. There is one I will put up. It doesn't really show you a whole lot. I think it's taken by an amateur, somebody with a either a phone or a camera to fight. But I'll put it up. Niklas Backstrom, a guy to watch out for. Next fighter I want to talk about, and again, it was a guy I wasn't going to put on the list, but decided to, based on his highlight video. ARTUR, ROFI, 5'11", 145 pounds, 28 years of age, 5-0, 1 knockout, 4 submissions, 12-1 as an amateur, Newark, New Jersey, USA. Association is Team Buttercourt. Upcoming fight February 3rd at CFFC 19 against Lester Koslow. As an amateur, he won the WK North American Combat Sports Championship. He trains at Team Buttercourt Jiu-Jitsu under the great Renzo Gracie. Solid ground game, of course. Lon Lankiness helps him out. He can work off his back with some triangle wins. Unorthodox striking, but from the clinch he's dangerous. He got some brutal knees. He's a very aggressive fighter and striker, so very cocky, very high in himself. A guy that I'd recommend checking out, ARTUR, ROFI. Next on the list, at number 19, is a guy that I kind of went back and forth on. I wasn't going to include this guy, but I decided to because I didn't have anybody from the Netherlands. Ben Boekee. He's kind of been under the radar. 25 years of age, 13-1, 2 knockouts, 7 submissions. Haarlem, Netherlands, Hoyers fight team. Kickboxing, grappling, and jiu-jitsu background. Very competent on his feet, kickboxing, punching, of course, being from the Netherlands. That tends to follow guys, some of the better strikers in various combat sports come from that, part of the world. Although most wins were by submission, you wouldn't feel he has that Muay Thai background, but very agile and submission savvy. I don't know if he's brother or cousin of Arnoki, but another tremendous fighter I will probably feature in a future video. When we talk about key victories, he's fought a lot of weak opponents, but again, he's been under the radar, so I decided to include him. He's got a big win over decorated German wrestler Marcel Judidi, and Andreas Bernard was 5-0 at the time when Boekee beat him. One of the stipulations I had for this video is I didn't want to include fighters that haven't fought this year. Now, he hasn't fought in 2012. He fought in late 2011, and because he was kind of somebody that nobody has talked about before, I decided to include him on the list. So I do have a video of him, Ben Boekee highlights, fairly interesting stuff. So check it out. I'll put it in the link section below. The last fighter I'm going to talk about, and it's not too often I get to feature a fellow Nova Scotian fighter. As a lot of you know, I'm originally from Nova Scotia. Although I do reside in Alberta at this moment, but originally I am from Nova Scotia. So I think a few years back, 3 or 4 years ago, I mentioned, the one fighter that comes to mind that was in one of my videos was TJ Grant, and of course he went on to great success. But nonetheless, I wanted to mention this fighter, Gavin Tucker, 5'6", 145 pounds, 26 years of age, 6-0, 2 knockouts, 3 submissions, trains at Halifax, Nova Scotia. I believe I Team Titan with the likes of Roger Hollett and Muay Thai champ Rob Walker. His background, well, I know he went to Thailand for a month to kind of broaden his knowledge of the sport, give him some more training in the stand-up portion of the game. He's originally from Newfoundland. Started training mixed martial arts, I believe, 5 years ago, approximately. He started training while at St. Avex University, also in judo, and I think he possibly won a few tournaments, local tournaments in that area in judo. He hasn't had the strongest opponents, but he got some decent wins. One is against Jeremy Henry, who was a 5-0 fighter who's been anywhere at Martin Gramont. He's also defeated 2-1 fighter Ryan Connors. Again, it's not too often you get to mention a guy from the East Coast, specifically, Atlantic Canada, but I do think that's going to change as there seems to be more fighters, coming out of especially the Halifax area. Tucker is, I believe, also a musician. I don't know if he's finished school or what his plans are, but I'm not sure how far he wants to keep going to fight anything. But your musician window, that window is huge. You can play the musician when you're 20, 30, 40, 50. You have a small window as a fighter. The odd guy can fight in his late 30s, or a guy like Kattar. Like, those guys are very rare to be able to do that. So, Gavin Tucker's 26. He's into it this far. It would be nice for the fans and for himself to make a run at it, to keep fighting, to see if he can make it to a televised show, the Score Fighting Series, Bellator, or something like that. I'm not sure how he would fare against, upper competition, but definitely worth a shot. Gavin Tucker, check him out. Always good to see fighters coming out of lesser known places. So Gavin Tucker is the last guy on the list. So that does it for the featherweight division. 20 fighters that I talked about. Again, I know there's many more prospects, but these are 20 guys I want to feature. Guys I'm interested in seeing, and I think some of these guys you will see in a bigger stage for sure. I'm not sure when. I know the UFC right now is rumored to be at a kind of a hiring freeze because they have so many fighters they ramped up for this new contract with Fox, and there's some changes they have to make. There's some fighters that you will see leaving UFC, I'm sure, soon, and some of these guys will get a shot. So but nonetheless, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2. I'm thinking it'll be out the next day or two, and I believe the next video will feature the lightweights. Thanks for watching. See you then.